Welcome to your Directors Club of America podcast and backstage pass to the biggest names in the game, the power players. I'm Jennifer Gelhaus, your co-host along Kyle Lacroix. Today, we invite you to listen to a conversation with Brandon Day. He is your very own Jared Chirico's right-hand man at Royal Oaks, and he is just a superstar pro. Every director needs at least one Brandon at their club. Enjoy this episode and make sure to subscribe. And if you want to keep the conversation going, as always, we invite you to follow us on LinkedIn, comment on our post, and let us know what you think. Remember, no filter needed. Enjoy. Welcome to Power Players. Today we welcome Brandon Day. He's the Director of Programming at Royal Oaks Country Club in Dallas, Texas. Welcome, Brandon. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me.
I know we all start with Kyle. He tends to have a burning question. So we've been doing that. So Kyle, go ahead and start us off with your big question of the day.
So let's start off. I know you're still fairly young in the industry, but you've had some pretty extensive experience already. And some of that experience has been with great directors, and some of it has been with not so great directors. So can you tell me kind of in between the two, what is the key differentiator between a great director and a poor director?
In my opinion, the biggest thing that a great director has to have is they have to love their job. Um, when the director loves their job, everything's better. I text with Jared at 3:30 in the morning, and he's like, "Is this the right time for this drill? Is this the right time for this clinic? Can we get more participants if we move to a different time?" Where when I've worked for poor directors, it's been that's when the time is because it's always been that way, and there's no reason behind it, and there's no willingness to change. I think being able to adapt and your membership's always changing. You get new members, people leave, the demand is different. So the number one thing is loving your job.
That's a great answer. So I think loving your job certainly makes it a lot easier. It makes you a lot more eager rather than just willing. But when you talk about loving your job, what is it about your current job that you love so much?
I love that every day is different. There's women's tennis, there's men's tennis, there's women's pickleball, men's pickleball, there's mixed events. We do huge pickleball events, which are I enjoy the stress of it. My favorite event we've ever ran was a 120 person Park City's dad's pickleball tournament. So it was very competitive, not very athletic, but they were very, very competitive. And it's never a one man show. The greatest things we do are all 12 of our pros working together. And that's what makes me love it.
Yeah, it's obvious that you love what you do. And Jared, he speaks so highly of you. He thinks the best world of you. And that's so great to see in a leader. And from my understanding, you guys met at Baltimore Country Club. How did that connection happen? How did you get that first job there?
So as Kyle knows, in the PTM, you have to do an internship every summer. And being 3 hours from Chicago, everybody wants to go to Chicago. And I just happened to be having lunch with my dad, and he's like, he's works for the federal government. So he works in all 50 states. And he's like, why be the same as everybody else? Like the United States is so big, the world is so big. Don't go to Chicago. I was like, I have no idea what to do then. So I looked up the top 50 platinum clubs of America, and I went one by one and I called every single club. Well, I think until about 38, because most of the people sent me to voicemail. And funny enough, they redirected me to Jared's cell phone, and he answered. And I said, "Hey, I'm in the PTM program. I have to do an internship. Is there a spot for me? Would you be willing to take on an intern?" And he's like, "Well, it depends. Like, do you have time?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "All right, here's your interview." And right on the spot, just from a cold call, interviewed me. And looking back now, it's funny because I know how Jared operates, but by the time the phone call was over, I already had an offer letter in my email box before the call was over. So that's how Jared and I met, through cold call, and we've been pretty inseparable ever since.
Wow, that's yeah. I can tell Jared will put you on the spot right away.
Yeah, he enjoys that. His big thing and I think has helped me so much is he puts me in situations to fail successfully. And it sounds terrible, but even we had an instance yesterday with wet courts and it's my role to handle it. And so I'm speaking with our members and we're offering the same solutions. But the way it came across when I said it, they weren't understanding and I ultimately failed to deliver what I was supposed to deliver. And then, we brought Jarrett in the conversation and the way he said things, the way, he made the members feel, there wasn't a problem. Everything was great. And it's like, those little things that help you fail successfully. So now next time I go and we have a situation, I know how to word it. And, now it doesn't feel like they're losing something, yes, things change and here's the situation, but ultimately, we're doing the best we can.
Yeah, it's really an art to learn that, and it's so smart of you to recognize that right away and sticking with that person, learning as much as you can from that person because they're gonna shape you really into the professional that you're gonna be. So I think it's so important to, just surround yourself with good people that you look up to and try to emulate them. Obviously with your own personality and your own twist, but that's that's the smartest thing you can do, really.
And I think there's a lesson in there too that it's not always what you say, it's how you say it, right? And so when you're speaking to a group of tennis players, especially at a nice upscale club like you're at in Dallas at Royal Oaks, there's some ego and expectation, right? And you have to be able to manage the ego and expectation better than anybody else, especially in a precarious position like a rain delay, wet courts. People want to play. They don't want to just wait around and they might not understand. So, let's talk about that a little bit. Where do you think you've grown the most from your days as an intern in PTM to now where you're now a full-time professional working day in and day out, year round at a club? Where do you think you've grown the most from your PTM days?
I think the biggest shift was on an internship, you're there for 10 weeks and you give everything you have for 10 weeks. You teach 14 hours a day, does not matter. Everything that you're looking to do is on the court or at the club. So the biggest change that I had to make was like when I started full time, there is truly no off season. Yes, there's a slower season, but there's no off season. So hard work doesn't always get you there. Working harder and more hours doesn't necessarily mean I'm doing a better job. If I feel like I'm burning out and I feel like, okay, I need to take a day and like taking a step back is the biggest change that I've made because when I was an intern, I never said no. It didn't matter. I would teach lessons at 4 o'clock in the morning. I would teach lessons at 10 o'clock at night. And nothing ever mattered but the club. Full-time year round, I have a wife and that's not realistic. There's times where I could do a 4 a.m. lesson, but how does it affect my week? If I'm taking a 4 a.m. lesson on a Tuesday and I have 14 hours on court on Wednesday, I can't give the members on Wednesday my best. So it's taking a step back and saying, okay, how can I be my best for all my lessons and not just add another one, get another hour. So I'd say that was the biggest change of you have to be smarter. You can still work really hard. And I work 7 days a week and I love it. But when I feel that pressure, I'm like, okay, I need to take a day off. I need to go, be off the court. I need, I might be at the club, but I'm not necessarily teaching. I'm just with the members and being around.
Well, I think you're a rare breed, Brandon, because I know that we see not like that. How do you feel about when people say, or what do you feel when people say, that your generation, I'm guessing you're much younger than we are, that your generation is, I don't want to say lazy, but maybe entitled or that, they really want things their way to work only a certain amount of hours in certain days and things to be built more around their, you know, work-life balance.
I have a really hot take on work-life balance because with my generation, I have friends that teach 4 days a week and they take 3-day weekends every weekend. And that's awesome. And I'm super happy for them. But my problem is it's not if you work 7 days a week or if you don't, everybody's different. The biggest thing for me is, are there pathways? Are you able to do what you want to do and learn what you want to learn? If I teach 40 hours, 4 days a week, that's awesome. You can take 3 days off and that's amazing. But for me, it's like every time I'm on the court, I can get better. Everyone takes Sundays off. I come in, I teach from 7 to 6 on Sundays. So for Jarrett to say, if he said it's mandatory, you cannot teach on Sundays, like that would just hurt me. Like I know my own limits. Jarrett doesn't want to limit me. He doesn't limit me, but he gives me opportunities to learn. So I know my pathway. I know what I want to do and I know what I have to do to get there. And if that's to take a step back and learn administrative work during the week so I can teach more on the weekends, I can do that comfortably in a 7-day schedule. And I'm also, a bit interesting. My wife is from Spain. So I go to Spain for 2 weeks in August. I turn my phone off. I don't answer a single text message, a single phone call. I am unavailable. And that's my time. So for me, a 2-week recharge is exactly what I love. And Thanksgiving's the same way. I get to go to Michigan with my family. And those are the 2 times of the year where I'm unreachable. I will not answer. I do not get on LinkedIn. I don't do anything. So that's what I consider balance. I'm perfectly recharged and I'm able to do my responsibilities and follow the pathway that I want to follow. And, if you want to work 4 days a week, that's awesome, but you're just limiting yourself.
Yeah. And then, obviously you and Jared have such impeccable work ethic and you worked together both at Country Club, then went to Royal Oaks, and it's just exploded the program there. What do you think has been the difference? Because it's, two guys that were at the same place, not at a different place and able to grow so much. What do you think has been the main driver in making that change?
Look, I've been lucky enough to work for Jarrett. Um, and he's truly the driving force. We don't view rackets as strictly rackets. And that's the ultimate biggest game changer. On Sunday, our junior director and I did a Nerf war event. There was no tennis rackets. It was just a Nerf war. For 2-3 hours, Nerf war. We had, 60, 70 people here, all kids. And then those kids are now attached to us. And now they're in our new session that just started for the month of May for junior tennis. So it's viewing your space and what you have, not necessarily as this is a tennis court. It's an opportunity and how can you make opportunities? And that comes from Jarrett. And I've been fortunate enough to learn that. But with both Baltimore and Royal Oaks, it's the people, it's the staffing. Our big motto that we follow is grow or get outgrown. So you either grow with the program and we're going to grow this thing, or the program's going to outgrow you and you'll have to find a place elsewhere because it won't be at the club that's growing.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, it'll be, I guess, yeah, 3 years this weekend. So honestly, there's one huge driving factor, and then there's a situation a conversation that I'll never forget, stick with me for my whole life. The first thing is my dad never had one job. He works for the government, so he works 4 10s. So he works Monday through Thursday. So he's like, I've got 3 days. So then he started training racehorses, which he knew nothing about. But that's how he filled his time. And then he made some money, and then he bought a table chair and canopy rental business. So he rented out canopies and stuff for graduation parties and weddings and whatnot. There was always opportunity. So from getting dragged around and having to help with all that stuff, it was okay, this is normal. So that's kind of how it was growing up. Like this was normal. It was like, if you want something, you work for it. I broke a racket when I was 12, and rackets are $300 now, but it was like 200 and 185. My dad's like, count out how many lawns you have to cut. You better start walking around and cutting lawns, because I'm not buying you another racket. And then it's like, okay, that changes your perspective. And my number one driving force is I was a senior, and I was like, I'm going to Ferris. I'm going to be a tennis pro. That's what I want to do. And I had one of my teachers tell me, I don't like onions on my burgers when you end up at McDonald's. And for me, that was like, I will do whatever it takes to eventually go back one day and be like, this is what I'm doing. And that really keeps you every single day I think about it. And it's been 6 years, 8 years.
So, Brandon, would you say that when I mean, you've worked for different people and some better leaders than others. Would you say that even at a young age as a new pro, you came in and you recognized them for leadership?
Yes and no. It's hard to know good leadership until you have it.
Mhm.
A lot of people say my boss is the greatest boss I've ever had, and I loved working for them, but there's no growth. I think the hardest part about being able to say who's a good leader and who's not is like, are you able to take feedback yourself and say, okay, where can I improve and where did I improve? I think about all the time. The first drill I did, a cardio drill with Jarrett, he was speeding. I go to sub in, and the ladies made every single ball that Jarrett fed. I come in, and he's like, why are they missing all these shots? And he's like, you're floating your feeds. These are high bouncy. They're at their shoulder. So by the end of the summer, I go back to school, and my feeding is already improved substantially. And it's like, that's a significant factor. If you're going to be feeding a ton of balls your life, you better be able to hit a good feed. So it was always, okay, here are the things that I actually improved on. And, this person is directly responsible for helping me get there. I went on an internship my first summer, and it was the greatest summer of my life in Vermont, but I didn't teach. I taught maybe 3 hours a day, 4 days a week. And, I was going rafting and mountain biking and doing all these great things, but I was probably worse when I got back to school than before I came. So for me, it's like, how was my growth? Like, if they can't help me get to where I want to go and I'm putting in the effort, then, they're not fit to be a leader.
That's such a great response. I mean, I can look back at my own career and think of so many places where I was, and I ended up leaving because of that, because I just felt like I wasn't getting anywhere. It was just, I was doing the same thing and I wasn't really learning or getting better. Like you said, you got to go to those places that will push you. And sometimes those can be uncomfortable, right? Like somebody coming and telling you, hey, your feet sucks. You need to change it. That doesn't feel good. Especially if you've been playing tennis your whole life. You're like, what the heck are you talking about? Right? But for you to take it and say, oh, okay, well, now I see what you mean. I need to change it and then change it and take it in. I think it really does take a special person, and I can tell you that because I work with a lot of different pros. Wouldn't you agree, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, I think the industry, there's so many different clubs, there's so many different personalities of club members. There's a lot of different teaching styles. If you walk into a room and ask a question to 100, teaching pros, you're going to get 100 different answers, right? That's just how it is. So it's managing the personalities. It's of not just the staff, but also managing the personalities of the members. And there's obviously your teaching skills, but there's also a lot of the soft skills. So I guess that kind of leads me to my next question for you, Brandon, which is, what soft skills have you developed from, let's say, your time at Baltimore with Jarrett and your time at Royal Oaks with Jarrett?
I think for me, my biggest strength is talking. I always have a smile on my face. I like the people more than I like tennis. I love tennis. I love pickleball, but I love people more. And so for me, it's always been more of a strength, something I could lean on. But the number one thing is not what I'm saying, but how it's coming across, how they're receiving the information is always the biggest thing. Because I might be having the best intentions for them, but that's not how it's perceived. So it's the way things are worded and, my response time, there's everyone has a busy life and, always being responsive and always being available, whether it's, someone that's upset or someone that's super happy. It's like always providing that response time that's not keeping them waiting. So that's the number one skill. And I'm still working on it because, sometimes you'll have 48 text messages and I taught 8 to 8 and I want to just sit down and have dinner with my wife. But this is what I chose. And, you have to do the right thing.
Oh, yeah. And what about education? I mean, how do you make time for that? And I saw your LinkedIn, you have all the different acronyms. How much value that? How do you think that is helping you or has helped you in your career?
I wouldn't say the certifications have helped me. They've I've definitely learned from them, but I'm a big supporter of education. There's always room to learn. And, I was fortunate enough to never played pickleball in my life. And the first time I stepped on a court was with Colin. And I didn't have a pickleball certification for a year, but I was teaching 10 clinics a week with Colin, has been number one in the world. And, they call him the architect. He's so analytical and he'll send me videos still to this day of, hey, I broke this down and this is what I saw. You should teach that. And education, in my opinion, will always go farther because you're either willing to learn or you're not. Can I pass a test to say, yeah, oh yeah, Brandon can feed, Brandon can do whatever, and it protects me. I have a shield. Hey, I've gone through the steps to make sure I'm a certified teaching pro, which the members like, and it should be mandatory. But ultimately, it's what you're learning and what the education that's offered. It's not. This is how you teach a forehand. This is how you teach a backhand. This is how you make a lesson plan flow. This is how you can build a program. Here are the stepping stones, and what are your progressions, things like that have really helped me because it's a flow. You can still have your own style. My big thing is I don't like to be pigeonholed. I don't want to be, this is exactly how you have to do something and this is what you're going to do. Here's the concept. This is the end goal we're looking for. How can you get there with your strengths? I didn't play professional tennis. I didn't play Division I tennis. If I have a guy who played at Illinois, my strength isn't going to be going out there and smacking balls up the middle. That's not my strength. But, progressions and drills and stuff are my strength through the education and certification. So my lesson would look completely different than someone like Jarrett, who has a much better playing background. But we can each deliver and get to the same end goal.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's a hard question. I enjoy that. No, when I took all of my certifications, it was like show up, teach, do whatever. Okay, you pass, you fail. And I passed, and that's fantastic. And I think a lot of it also falls on the industry itself, not just the organizations. If we're not willing to educate others in things that we think we're good at, and attend events and build a community, then there, it can't all fall on the certification companies. And that's where I think I haven't been in the industry that long, but it's where it's starting to change to where it's like, no one's an expert. Pick up the phone. I have a question. Hey, Michael Jordan is much better in that area. Give him a call. And that for me is like huge. Being able to say, okay, all these different pieces, let's educate each other. And that's never going to fall under a certification company. And it is what it is. And that's my favorite part about the Directors Club is I see something's happening to our courts. And, obviously Jarrett handles all that before I even see it. But this is what I did. I called these people because I'm not great at lighting. I'm not an electrician, but I know the right people to call so I can make a better educated judgment on what we need to do. So certification, like I said, it is what it is. It's important to have and to show that you're dedicated and whatnot. But ultimately, it's the education through other people and the willingness to give back. If no one gives back, we'll stay where we are.
Yeah. And I think we kind of gone over it, but we had it down to ask you, what do you think sets a director apart, like Jarrett, right? What sets him apart as a director from working with him?
So Jarrett, you either love Jarrett or you hate Jarrett. The reason being is he is a sink or swim kind of guy. I meet with Jarrett at 8 a.m. 5 days a week. Sometimes we talk about absolutely nothing. Sometimes, there's great solutions we have. Sometimes it's just like things that are happening in the industry. So with Jarrett, it's like, if you're willing to ask the questions and you're willing to say, hey, I want to do more. This is what I want. This is the goal I'm working towards. How can you help me get there? By all means. In our cold call interview, towards the end, I asked him, I said, why should I work for you? And he started hopping and he got all like fired up. And that I think that was the turning point in our interview to where he was like, okay, you want to see what I can help you do? Let's do this thing. All right. Like, are you committed? Because I am. And having that mentality of, okay, any question I have at 3 a.m, 2 a.m, noon, it doesn't matter. He's always reachable. Any question I have. And that's what helps me grow. Sometimes he thinks they're stupid questions, but you don't know what you don't know. My ultimate goal was I wanted to be a GM. I thought that was the pathway. And I sat down with Jarrett at Baltimore after my first summer and we talked for like 2.5 hours. And he's like, this is why you shouldn't be a GM and why you will never be a GM. But if you want to be a tennis director, we can get you there and this is how we'll do it. If you don't want to learn, I'll let you be, but you're not going to be on his staff for very long.
Bingo. I think you nailed it
And
with
wait,
Jared.
what happened?
I think I think you nailed it with Jared because my relationship with Jared was hate love because when I first met Jared, he was like 16 and I was working at Philly Cricket Club and he came to the ITF Grass Court Juniors and he was 16 and he dropped off a bunch of rackets. And back in the day, they had these Prince rackets that were like black on one side, white on the other side, and they had no grommets. And he dropped them off with like natural gut string. And he had like 7 of them. And I was there till probably like 2 or 3 in the morning stringing them. And I said to myself, if I ever see this kid again, I'm going to punch him. And ever since then, I've always had this thing with like Jared Trico. And then, long story short, years later, we connect again through the industry. And now he's one of my best friends. But it's just kind of funny how that goes. But I think what Jared's done for you is wonderful, but I also think what you've done for yourself, the mindset that you've had all the way through has been really, really beneficial. So if there's a young professional listening to this podcast right now, Brandon, what 3 tips would you give them to be successful in their career?
Number 1 would be to get on LinkedIn. Sounds simple because it is simple. Get on LinkedIn, connect with people with jobs that you want to have, and reach out. Number 2 would be pick up the phone. Call someone that you connected with on LinkedIn. Send them a message. Hey,
Oh, what are you talking about? Not text?
No, you gotta
Generation does
call.
not make phone calls. What are you talking about?
And the reason is it's uncomfortable. So that's why you have to do it. If you're willing to call someone on the phone, they're gonna give you way more props than if you shoot them a text. So it was
Mhm.
like pick up the phone and make it happen. And the last thing would be is just have a plan. Like I said, my plans always change. I was dead set on by the age of 25, I wanted to be a director. And ultimately that didn't happen. The last day that I was, 24, the day before my birthday, I got my promotion here at Royal Oaks and I was so excited. I'm like, this is exactly where I want to be. This is the exact role I want to be in because I'm a micro director. I get to be the director of my program, but I still get to learn and I still get to make mistakes and it's not detrimental. So it's make a plan and change accordingly because you don't know what you don't know. If I was like, I want to be a director at, these 5 clubs and that's my goal. And then I came to Texas, which I've never been to in my life. And I'm like, now I'm the director of women's and our program does more revenue than these entire clubs. So it's like, I didn't know that was possible. And I didn't know the revenues and the numbers and stuff. I was just on the court. So it's like, make a plan and change accordingly.
Yeah. I always say you make plans to give you a direction, but you plan got laughs. Is that what they say? When I got out of college, my plan was to have a master's and a PhD, have my own lab by 30. Because I was in science, and I ended up going back to tennis because I didn't like that. But anyway, that's my story. But yeah, I think when you're in your 20s, you're just kind of figuring that out. And like you said, you don't know what you don't know. And the longer that you can be under someone's guidance and really absorbing everything that you can, I think it's going to be ultimately better for you.
So, Brandon, I have a question for you because you say you're always smiling. And since I've known you at Fair State and PTM, you were always smiling. But I want to try to bring it down a notch. And I want to know, and hopefully you're still smiling when you answer this, but have you ever been wronged in this industry? Have you ever felt like something was done to you? It was unjust, it was unfair, a low moment. Can you share?
Oh, 100%. I was walking back from the business building, the junior in college, and I get a phone call here. It's like, hey, we're moving to Texas. I'm like, what are you talking about? I got one more year of school. And he's like, figure it out. Can you go online? Let's do this thing. I want you to come with me. It'll be incredible. You're gonna love it. I'm like, all right. So for 5 weeks, I'm meeting with all the people at the school trying to figure out how I can finish my degree online because I was finishing my junior year, so not finishing school wasn't an option. And it's, my parents, neither of them have a college degree, so it wasn't an option of just not finishing. So we do all the legwork and I figure it out with the PTM advisors and my business advisors and my marketing uh, advisors. I'm like, all right, it's go time. Give me a date. Like I'm ready. And then of course, doing college activities and I get a phone call from Jarrett and he's like, hey, you can't go. And I was like, why not? Like you don't have a spot? Like that's fine. Like I'll wait. Like I'll do my internship at Baltimore and I'll join you in the busy season. And he's like, no. Like they're threatening a lawsuit if I take you with me, like a non-compete. I'm like 20 years old, 21 years old, and I'm like, I don't know what any of this means. Like what non-compete? Jared just had his 3rd child. He's moving halfway across the country, and he's like, I don't have the time nor the energy to fight a potential lawsuit and be a new director at a huge club. And I was just, I don't understand it. Looking back now, I'm happy that I was able to finish school, but I just don't understand how, Baltimore was gonna slap us with a lawsuit. Like I was an intern. And technically I was working for Ferris State University at Baltimore Country Club per, our agreement that they signed, the GM signs, the club signs, the university signs. And that was really, really bitter. You could, if Jarrett didn't happen to have an opening the following year, I would have just been out of luck. And it's like, my life was getting messed with because of a vendetta or, a disagreement with a GM and Jarrett. And there's nothing to do with me, but it's affecting my life. And, I'm not able to go work a job because you no longer like Jarrett and Jarrett wants me to go with him. So that was the biggest one. That was, I'm a 20-year-old kid and you're threatening me with a lawsuit. Like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Like, that's not right. Like, I have to go back there and work. And I already signed an agreement. So I had to go back the next summer. And ultimately, I did have a great summer and, they offered me full time and I was not accepting that offer. And, I have nothing but respect for the staff they have there in Rackets. But yeah, that left a really bitter taste in my mouth because I was just a 20-year-old getting threatened with lawsuits because I wanted to teach tennis.
Yeah, that's never gonna go well if, you threaten someone with something like that. I mean, that's intense. How can you even expect them to well, first of all, how do you expect them to accept a future job, to stay, and how do you expect them to do a good job when you're basically forcing them to be there? That's insane.
Yeah, and ultimately, like I said, it was still the same core staff that all ultimately ended up leaving within the next 6 months. But yeah, it was a real eye opener to how important it is who you work with.
Mhm.
You can have the greatest club and the greatest membership, but if you don't work for the right people, you're great until you're not a use to them.
And to read your contracts.
Very
Jeez,
true.
that's sorry to hear that. I mean, we all go through crazy stuff like that, but that's the first time I hear of a non-compete. Is that the first time for you, Kyle?
Yeah, that's I mean, for an intern
Right.
nonetheless, right? Like that's the thing
Yeah.
is for an like you're just coming out there for the summer, 10 weeks, and it's like, my goodness. And um, obviously clubs have their reasons and sometimes things do get personal. I always like to say it's not personal, it's personnel. But, that's a tough situation. So just following up on that, when all this is going on, you're still in college, you're looking for an opportunity. You have to go back to Baltimore. And of course, kind of like in the beginning of this podcast, you mentioned about, you have to love what you do. That must have been a brutal experience because now your heart's no longer in it, right?
Yes and no. I didn't care for the club, but I still love the people. Like I said, the staff was the same. And, Alex Kiblin, who is one of my greatest friends, we're very, very similar. So working under him and going back with Colin and I are polar opposites. And my first summer, I talked to Colin so much. He said that he started having conversations with me because it was a way to get me to stop talking. So having that, and then my wife actually joined us to round out our staff was pretty amazing. And then ultimately, the director that they hired is a fantastic guy. Gavin Leon is an Aussie, and so the hospitality and he's amazing. And I still frequently talk with him as well. So we were able to compartmentalize and stay in the Rackets area, but it was the above and beyond is gone unless it's for my direct coworkers or my membership. But outside of that, I'll do my responsibilities and that is all.
Yeah. And what about your GM dreams? Are they fully gone? Is that still something you want to pursue, or what do you see yourself in the future?
And no GM role here, is ultimately director of Rackets, being I'm 25, freshly 25. So I've got time just in my role here at Royal Oak. I'm super excited and being able to learn so much and there's a lot of opportunity. So it's just taking the lessons day by day. And then if there's an opportunity available, pursue it. But ultimately, a director of rackets is where I want to be.
And how do you like Dallas?
I don't. I grew up in a 4,000 person farm town where my dad's the mayor. And, I was driving at like 12 to my friends' houses, and Dallas is the exact opposite. There is a ton of people, which is fantastic. There's a ton of people playing tennis, but big city's a little too much for me. And I love being here, and the weather's great and all that kind of stuff, but ultimately Dallas is a little too hectic.
And people in Texas are pretty different too, I'm sure. But that's actually a misconception because I had it in my head that Texas was a certain way, and I actually just went to Texas, and everyone was so nice. Crazy.
Yeah, it is very funny. My mother-in-law came here from Spain, and she doesn't speak any English. And we pick her up from DFW, and we're driving her in, and she's asking my wife, and she's like, where are the horns? And she's like, do you know anything about horns? What is she? Yeah. I'm like, she's talking about like cattle. She's like, yeah, like we're in Texas. I was like, no, 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 no. We live in Dallas. This is a city. We have none of that. We can go visit Fort Worth, but this is Dallas. This is just a city. This isn't, big trucks and cowboy hats. It's just a regular city.
That was my reaction too, though, because I was there in October of 2023, and I had never been to Dallas before. And so I was expecting when I got off the plane, when my plane landed in Dallas and I got into the airport, I thought there were going to be like people in cowboy hats and cowboy boots. And I thought there were going to be like cows just roaming the street. I don't know why I had that perception of it, but I'm like, oh wow, this is Dallas. Like I'm gonna see like a rodeo like in the middle of the street or something. And then I get there and it's so cosmopolitan and it's upscale. And then people will tell me, oh no, 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 like the sort of country western stuff is more Fort Worth, but Dallas is very upscale. So I had that same experience as Jen and as your mother-in-law. So that's really interesting. So if Dallas isn't your thing, where do you see yourself going in the next 5 to 10 years?
Wherever the job takes me. The benefit of having an international wife is she has no ties. We either are in the US or we would have to move to Europe. And, Europe's not really on the table, and he doesn't want to go back. So I'm not, I've always been, I'm going to move as far away as possible. And maybe that changes with kids and such. But for now, it's wherever the opportunity takes us. We have each other. We found a stray dog a couple years ago. So we have our little family. And so wherever the three of us go is awesome. So it's really just dependent on the job, preferably the South, whether that's Arizona or Georgia, Florida, Texas, doesn't matter to us, but definitely somewhere where it's a little bit warmer.
Yeah. Brandon, what are we not asking you? What is something that you wish we asked you as a young pro, but obviously a successful pro? That's a burning question in your head, or something you want to ask us.
I mean, I can, you guys asked the good questions already. I tried to get a cheat sheet from Jared. He wouldn't let me have it.
No.
Um, not with him. I think, yeah, I don't really have any. I think the biggest thing is, people have to be curious to move forward. As you said, I have a ton of friends who all they do is complain. It's like, hey, I have to work on a Saturday. I have to do whatever. And moving forward, it's going to be very interesting to see how upper management directors and how they can handle that. Like how is the industry going to shift because people are no longer willing to do what it takes to be successful, which is alarming and scary. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting moving forward. The director roles are expanding. It's not tennis, it's pickleball, platform, padel, leagues, DUPER, UTR, USTA. I mean, what's going on? There's so many acronyms that it's impossible to follow, but that's what I'm most curious to see. And if you guys have any thoughts on how, the director role is going to change with my generation and even younger filling your staffs, I'm all ears.
I like Kyle answer that.
Okay, so perfect example. I think what you just touched on about the openness to other racket sports, I think that's only going to increase. I think it's going to come to the point where clubs are going to be forced to. And I think in this environment, I think in Dallas and especially here where I am in South Florida, clubs are fairly conservative, but at the same time, no club wants to be the last club to get on board with Padel or get on board with platform or squash or whatever else might be. I think a lot of clubs need to take that step because they have a lot more to lose if they don't do something than if they do. And I think the industry as a whole needs to be a little bit more progressive and forward thinking and say, let's take a big swing. Let's stop playing in just our little sandbox. Let's actually take a risk because that's eventually what's going to push the industry forward, right? We have to be a little bit more creative, but our industry is so stuck in short-term thinking that it's really tough to actually think outside that box to take a risk, if that makes any sense. I just feel as though it's like, we lost our creativity because we're so busy on making, Q2 earnings, because we're so busy looking at financial statements that we have to stay at a certain course, as opposed to just saying, you know what, I'm going to throw that all out. Yes, the financials are important, but you know what else is important is staying alive and doing something that, maybe isn't hot right now, but we got to think in the future, 5 to 10 years from now. So I think that kind of leads me to my question back to you, Brandon, which is the world changes tomorrow. You are now in charge of the entire industry, the racket sports industry, the teaching professionals, all the certification bodies, everything. What's the first thing you're going to change when you're in charge?
The first thing I would change is I would make mandatory mentorship program where it's, hey, your club's doing great. You're everywhere. These 3 kids, you're in charge of. I don't care if you're in Florida and there's a kid in Oklahoma, there's a kid in New Zealand. It doesn't matter. There has to be, the kids aren't reaching out, then we have to fix the problem from the top. We need higher level people reaching out and helping people in the industry. That'd be my number one. I'd make a mentorship program and, the big theme of unfiltered, what this is. If you can't express what you're actually feeling and what's actually going on, then there's no actual solution being talked about. If we all sit down and we're like, oh, you have this, that's amazing. You did such a great job. And part of the change that I had to make, which is hard, is because I'm a sunshine and rainbows kind of guy. That's who I am. And recent conversation with Jared is, if you expect people to do the bare minimum and you congratulate them, they will always do the bare minimum. And, so if we have, these young kids have to reach out, they don't know any better. So make the people who have been through the experience, that know how much a mentor can change your career, change your life, force them to reach out to people. And the other thing I would axe certification altogether, all these competing things and whatnot. And yeah, I would just axe it. A certification doesn't mean you're qualified, and I would just eliminate it. And if you want to be educated, seek education and offer education, but not necessarily offer a certification. Offer education. We're going to educate you, and this is, what you're going to learn. And like I said, I'm big on, here's the objective, here's the goal I want. How can we get you there? Hey, I can't feed overheads. How can we get you there? It's not I'm going to hold your hand and this is the grip you need to use and this is how high you have to hit it and this and that. That doesn't matter. You either get that or you don't. Can you get to the result, certification or not?
Absolutely. Because certification seems so final. It's like, oh, you're certified. You're done. You're
Yeah.
done learning, go and work, and you're good forever. So that's an interesting concept. I actually really like that. And I agree with you 100% on the mentorship side. I wish I had more, not that I didn't have mentors, but just uh someone to like really take me in and help me throughout my career. And just more guidance, I think I've always needed. In our industry, if you have great work ethic, opportunities will come your way. So, doesn't your playing background used to matter a whole lot more, like you were saying. Uh, Obviously, it's still an advantage to have, but it used to be the determining factor. I think now we're valuing more, your personality, how good you are at managing people, how good of a leader you are. So if you have the work ethic, you can go really far in this industry. And that should be exciting for any new pro because that tells you you can come in and really make a living, make a great career out of yourself as long as you're willing to put in the work.
Yeah, and I think when I was up at Ferris last year and gave a presentation, I talked about you have two people at the same club. One teaches pickleball, one doesn't. On the tennis aspect of it, you have a guy who's a two-time national champion, four-time Division I All-American, top 500 ranking. Then you have a kid who went through the professional tennis management program. Playing background, doesn't even mention it. You're going to be drawn to the guy that has national championships. I am drawn to the guy that has national championships. I teach pickleball. It gives me an opportunity to get on court with people. They experience how I teach, how I communicate, how I make them feel, and now they want to take a tennis lesson.
Hmm.
If you can do both, fantastic. And the people that are teaching multiple sports ultimately out earn the ones that don't. And, so that's a huge factor too, is like, with the change, it's not just, hey, I'm really, really good at tennis. It's, oh, I play tennis with the wife. I play tennis with the kids. I play pickleball with the husband. Oh, now that, their mom and dad want to come out and do a pickleball lesson. And, the kids are watching grandma and grandpa play pickleball, and it connects everything. So it's like, if you're unable to connect everything, yes, you might be fantastic at teaching tennis and hitting balls and being on court, but that's no longer important. It's the touch points all the way across that allow you to really make a change. I have many families where I play a sport with 6 or 7 of them, the two adults and their 5 kids. That's 7 touch points. If I just teach adult tennis, I have 1. So who's more valuable? You're building a program, you're building something, and you're trying to advance it. The person that has more touch points will always be. We have more touch points now at Royal Oaks than any other department. Golf, food and beverage, swim activities, it doesn't matter because we offer things for every single person in their entire family.
Yeah.
Wow. I think
That's-
Jen, I think we just found our sound bite right there. That's
Yeah,
impressive.
exactly.
That's impressive. Great job, Brandon. Well, thank you so much, Brandon. You are definitely I would say a rising star, but I think you're already a star. So thank you so much for your time. And if there's anything that we can do for you on our end, please let us know. But Jared thinks the world of you. You're doing a bang up job. So whatever your secret sauce is, man, keep doing it. We absolutely love it. We're big fans.
Yeah,
Awesome.
we
Yeah,
are.
thank you so much for having me. It means I've seen the star-studded lineup. I've got a sneak peek from the big man, so I'm just super excited that I was included in that group.
No, it's our pleasure. Thank you so much, Brandon. This has been great. And all the best to you. You have such a bright future.
Thank you so much.